Okay. Next, number 4. Marketing or market experiment. It's kind of like both. They call it here market experiment, but I think more of it is marketing experiment. I'll give you an example in the United States, and then we'll try something here. You got 2 states, let's say Ohio and Arizona. They provide one advertising in Ohio and a completely different advertising in Arizona for a product. Before that, they see the purchasing patterns, and then based on 2 different advertisings, they can decide if one is more effective than the other. Okay? So you provide 2 different advertisings there. Now, here, example will be, because it's very difficult to advertise differently in a small country, they can still do a different type of experiment, is in packaging. For example, you have chocolate, okay, and one has one type of packaging, the other one has a different type of packaging. You have 2 options. Option 1, you put them right next to each other and see which one consumer buys. Option number 2, you put the one packaging in the one store and you put a different packaging in a different store. For example, you have 2 Carrefours in town, so they're more or less similar shoppers, and you change only the packaging in one. You change only the outside packaging, or you change, let's say, the size. They have Cheerios, nachos, you know, all sorts of stuff have a different 300, 400, 500 different. They may be only 12 or 14 or 16 pieces of whatever it is inside, okay? They could be chips, they could be cookies, could be 400 or 500, or small, 200 and 500. And it's a simple experiment. In the one store you put the one packaging, in the other store you put the other packaging. In one store you put one size, in the other store you put another size. All else is the same, and all you see is changing the outside appearance or changing the size, okay? And then you simply observe, you just observe what's happening. So it's a market experiment. Now, the big thing is that this is very real world. This is a huge advantage. It is very, very real world. You actually can observe for a day, for a week, for a month of what really happens. Of course, like any and all marketing research, it could become expensive. Now, sometimes just changing the label and the sticker could not be very expensive. But a market experiment, let's say if Pepsi Cola will have 300 milligram and 200 milligram, having a new bottle, new distribution, new packaging, a different size bottle could turn out to be a big manufacturing, distribution, accounting operation. So it could become possibly relatively costly. Okay. Now, marketing experiment will be just pure price. Again, in the one store, they put the one price. In the other store, they put the other price. They don't really inform exactly the consumers so that they go to the cheaper store and then they observe what happens, okay? Similar, you have 2 stores, you got exactly the same product, which we're selling all for exactly the same price, let's say 7 dirham, and you raise only one quietly to 9. And you still keep the other one at 7. So before you know how much you were selling in the one store, in the other store, now you raise the price and you get to see the effect. Are the sales going to drop by 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%? Okay. Of course, you can do the opposite experiment. They both selling at 7 and you put it on promotion at 6 and see the difference. So again, you can make market experiments with packaging, with size, with prices, If it's a little bigger country, different with different advertisings, different promotions in all sorts of different ways. And it's highly realistic. Okay, including here, big change could be in product quality. You can just change the product quality. Well, me as a guy, I can't possibly tell the difference between the product quality of a laundry powder that you use in a laundry machine. I mean, I just pour in something and, you know, whatever happens. I'm not a good expert. So they can fool me with product quality on a laundry powder. I'm just giving it as an example. So they might be able to lower the quality and consumers might not be able to observe it, to see it. All right, so that's number 4, market experiments. Number 5, it's a brand new field in marketing called virtual shopping. A virtual shopping is on a computer screen. They can even give you these goggles where you actually look and you're like inside the store. When you go here, you get closer to the product. When you point to the product with your finger, it will zoom in and give you more detailed information, okay? So, it's a virtual shopping. It's computer simulation. Once you make the simulation in the program of the store, it is relatively cheap. Also, because it's a computer program, you can easily change prices, you can easily change different packaging, you can easily change other things, and get the consumers to redo it again. So, once it's set up, running it and operating it is very cheap. The first initial setup is relatively expensive, okay? So virtual shopping is relatively new, it's a computer screen model, and it just simulates a regular shop. And as you kind of like start moving, you're moving inside the shop, and it's looking on the left, on the right, the different products and whatnot. They make different colorings, different packaging. Again, the same story. And number 6 here is the last one, virtual management. A virtual management is a computer simulation program where somehow people program changes in quality and how demand is affected. Changes in price and how demand is affected. Changing in maybe competitive price, how demand is affected. In other words, they make it a big program. Well, how they do that, let's use 2 new terms. They're not business terms, but they should be familiar. First big new one is called big data. Big data is collecting not thousands, not millions, but billions of observations on millions of products, on billions of consumers. They see what you buy, where you buy, how much you buy. Well, where do you get billions of observations? Well, credit cards. If you make your payment, and how often you do your payment with a card, like a bank card, like a bank deposit card, right? Some people use them all the time. Other people use them rarely. In America, 80% of purchases are made with a card. So a couple like Visa will collect millions of data in a single day. They can make 10, 20,000 in a second. Question?
This one is not like private information. They are able to use it.
Well, yes and no. It becomes mostly private information, but Visa has private information of 90% of Emiratis and 80% of all of us foreigners. Here, they got 80% of the private information in consumers in Bulgaria. They got 95% of the private information. They have half of the world's private information.
Can they use it?
Sure, they use it all the time.
Is it legal to use it?
Hey, there is, okay, that's the next big thing, but it's not in this course. Legal and ethical. In most countries, it's perfectly legal. Is it legal in India? Well, who's going to stop them? Is there Indian law prohibiting it? What about China? Is there a Chinese law prohibiting it? Maybe there isn't. Well, how are you going to stop them in Yemen? Try stopping them in Syria. When these countries are in war, who cares about how legal it is? It doesn't matter, okay? Now, second, even if it's illegal, how the local government will enforce some American company? What, you're going to go and shoot America? Sure, the answer is you can't affect the behavior of an American company, or a German company, or a Japanese company. Okay, they're just different companies. Okay, you can't make you can't enforce it, even though it may be illegal. Okay, and their government will just ignore. Now, a separate issue, is it ethical? And the short answer is, of course, it's not ethical. But in business, there is always the conflict between profits and ethics. And when you have to sacrifice profits or you have to sacrifice ethics, businesses always choose to sacrifice health with the ethics, and I mean for the profits. Most business managers will lose their jobs if they sacrifice the profits, even if they have to do the right thing. So they simply ignore the right thing and they do what's good for the profits, even if it's sometimes illegal. Okay, so either way, we're coming back to big data. They are collecting it. Now, who are the two biggest collectors of data in the world that know what you want and that know what you think? Now, two of them are Google and Facebook. Now, again, let's clarify cultures. When I was teaching in Thailand, these kids are like sick. They are on the phone all the time, Facebook all the time. You always ask them the question to ask them, how many hours you spend every day? 4 or 5? And most of them answer 5. You see, they spend 5-6 hours a day on Facebook. Now, when I was teaching in Cambodia, these kids spend 3 hours a day on Facebook. Okay? So they are on it all the time. And every little search of their life is on Google. So Google knows everything they want to know. Google knows the type of lipstick they're interested in, the type of perfume they're interested in. Every single search that you make on Google, every product, they know what it is. Google knows exactly the cars that I'm interested in and the cars which certainly I was never interested in. They know based on the models what kind of engine cars I like, whether they're diesel or what, whether they're big, whether they're small, and all sorts of things. Similarly, all you need to do is for the last 10 years is to have searched 3 or 5 times for lipsticks or perfumes, and they know it all. They collect it all. So that's big data. And the second one is called business intelligence. Now, sometimes they call it data analytics. Data analytics is they have thousands of observations. Now they need to make sense out of it. Okay? So they need to figure out what is your real demand, what is just a curiosity. Google knows every disease that I have searched. Now, of course, doesn't mean I am sick from it. Could be my mom, could be my dad, and all the other stuff. They would know if I purchased any medicine, okay, online and so forth. Again, they need to analyze. So business intelligence is analyzing data to identify current shopping, current interest, and potential purchases. Potential purchases. Okay? So, once you get the big data in business intelligence, you can use number one to, again, estimate demand and possibly to forecast it. To forecast it. Alright, and I think this is good enough for this chapter. Let's finish. I have the other one is a lot smaller. I can do about 10-20 minutes and be done for today. So, let me summarize. We got 6 marketing research approaches. You paying attention now?
No.
Pay attention, okay? Is you playing with the phone? Okay, where's your phone? Alright, so the question, you wanted to know the question on the quiz, right? The question on the quiz is, describe 3 marketing research approaches with their advantages and disadvantages. So you need to tell me what it is, the advantages and disadvantages. Now, I may, depending on how big the quiz is and how many questions I have, it may be describe 2, maybe describe 4, okay? But it's the same thing. I'm not going to ask any special miracles, okay? I mean, that's a simple common sense question. Now, if it's a little one step higher, will be what is an observational research and what is a market experiment? What are the advantages and disadvantages of each? I'm just giving you an example. Now, I may pick a little different. What is the difference between consumer clinic and observational research? I'm just picking 2 of them. Okay? So these are the exact type of questions. Now, again, how I'm going to mix them is, but as long as you understand all 6, you should be okay. Okay? Does it make sense? Again, I'm not expecting anything extraordinary. You just got a good idea of how marketing approaches. This here is the latest and the greatest field, and it mixes with the brand new field of artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is trying to make computers think, analyze, and behave like humans. So they can actually, that's the next section which I'm coming, they can actually predict your behavior. So, 5, 2, 6, 1. Chapter 6 is forecasting, and 6.1, hopefully 20 minutes, qualitative forecasts. So, in business, the first step in demand theory was simply to say what affects people demand. What? Okay? The preferences, the incomes, and whatnot. That was the first step. That's chapter 4. Chapter 5, demand estimation, is answering the question, how? How is the product packaging affecting your demand? How is the price affecting your demand? Okay? How is the advertising? How is the promotion? Okay? And then comes the next step, is to predict or forecast your behavior. How much you're going to buy, how much you're going to spend. So, qualitative forecasts. Number 1 is survey techniques. Now, here we got a consumer survey. Here, again, you can ask them, how many computers expect to buy this year? How many phones do you expect to buy? Do you expect to buy a house? Yes, no. Do you expect to buy a car? Yes, no. So this survey runs in 3 different directions. Number 1, I gave you example. Consumer expenditure plans.
Can I ask questions?
Yes, of course.
For the forecast, what do you mean by forecast?
The word forecast means the same as predict. You try to guess, make an intelligent, informed guess what the consumer will do in the future. You try to guess, if you raise the price, will they buy it or not? You try to guess how many, for example, iPhone 10s they will buy. Okay? So, you just try to guess. If you're BMW, you try to forecast for the new model, how many 3 series, how many 5 series, how many 7 series. Okay? It's not just good enough to say I'm going to sell 40 cars. You need to know, because some buyers will buy only 3 series, while other buyers will buy nothing else but only 7 series. You understand? So it's basically you try to see what they will do, how they will behave, how many will they buy, will they even buy? Do they want to buy a 3 or do they want to buy a 5? Do they want to buy 3 just because it's cheaper, or even at the same price they still buy 3? Let's say simple consumer preferences in Bulgaria, my home country. For the same price, for the same size, for the same quality between BMW and Mercedes, most consumers certainly prefer BMW. They believe it's a better car. And they drive it. And you see a lot more BMWs back home in Bulgaria than over here. Here, it appears to me, judging by the streets, that there are like 10 times more Mercedes than BMWs. Or maybe 5, okay? Okay, 5 times more. So it appears, for some reasons, importers or buyers prefer more Mercedes to BMW. Now, I'm not saying this one is better, this one is worse, we're better, you're worse. I'm not ever saying that. I'm saying consumer preferences there are towards Mercedes. So BMW and here towards, this is how people behave. This is what they buy. Now, here, do I buy a Mercedes or a BMW? The mere availability. Just because it's 5 times more available, the choices for Mercedes are so much better that I choose a Mercedes because there were just 1 or 2 BMWs and they didn't fit my profile, whatever. Maybe the year, maybe the size of the engine, maybe the coupe, whatever the story was. The choice was not large enough. Now, consumer expenditure plans, again, coming back. You simply ask them, what do you want to buy? You're going to buy a new phone next year, meaning within the next 12 months? Okay, for 2012. You're going to buy a new phone? Yes. You're going to buy a new computer?
No.
You're going to buy a new car?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay, a new refrigerator?
No.
No. New microwave?
No.
New TV?
Yes.
Okay, well, again, when you ask 1,000 people, you get a good idea, okay? That's consumer expenditure. But instead of asking consumers, you can ask sales people, or let's try this, inventory changes. For example, there are a lot more inventories of a good. You just observe them. You're just asking, are your inventories rising or falling? If inventories rise, it may mean one of 2 things. It means consumers aren't buying as much. Or if inventories are rising, this means that manufacturers are producing a lot more because they expect the consumers to buy a lot more. So you simply look at inventory changes, okay? Now, inventory changes may be associated with a crop. For example, orange is now coming in. It's an orange season, and you got a whole lot more oranges, okay? Just because the supply has increased, okay? So you simply look at inventory changes. Another one is you ask salespeople. Salespeople talk to the customers all the time, like the car salesman down the street, or like the phone salesman. He talks to customers all the time. So you talk to sales people, and they usually know well what's going on with the economy, or at least with their product and the attitude. And then you ask, a completely different one is plant and equipment managers. Managers, this is just short of managers. You ask plant and equipment managers, hey, do you plan to produce more? Do you plan to produce less? What do you think? What your expectations are? So you ask these guys what their plans are, and it becomes fairly clear. So that's the one big one. And the second one is similar to the first one, opinion poll. Now you need to get a very advanced and sophisticated marketing guy. Are you guys taking a course in marketing right now? Yes, some of you. Well, ask your teacher exactly what is the difference between a survey and a poll. To me, it's all the same, but that's because I teach finance. Like when I ask a marketing guy, income is like, net income, gross income, they get lost in accounting, I get lost in marketing. For me, a survey and a poll is the same thing. You ask people what they think, or what they plan, or what they want to do. So you ask the opinion of, number one, executive. Executive, what they say, opinion, executive poll. Polling simply means asking a quick question. Poll is the same as when people vote. You ask executive. Executives are usually more informed. They usually have a better idea of their business. They usually see a lot of other executives. So executives are generally better informed about their product, and if you ask them, they can quickly tell you what's going on and what their expectations are. So that's number one. We'll not discuss here, not in this course, you'll study it in management and other stuff. It's called the Delphi method. Not part of microeconomics, part of management. Second one is, again, very tricky, exactly the same. Sales force polling. Again, it's pretty much the same thing. You just ask the salespeople, do you expect to increase the sales of, I don't know, Samsung Galaxies? Do you expect to sell more or less iPhones? And he might be knowledgeable enough to say, oh, no, iPhones will sell less because now they're better Galaxies. Or, oh, no, both Galaxies and iPhones will fall because the Chinese Huawei is producing good enough quality at half the price. And the quality is good enough. It doesn't have to be the same, it doesn't have to be better, it's just good enough. Now, for me, the phone that I'm using here is a Samsung Galaxy J5. It's a relatively cheap phone. It's only 600, 700, 600 dirhams, 7. Okay? It's cheap, 6, 7. It's not expensive. It satisfies the satisficing requirement. I get the internet, I get the stock price, I get my email, I get WhatsApp, I get Skype, I get all the basic stuff, and I even get to record a whole bunch of lectures. It's good enough for me. Sure, can I buy twice better? Maybe, but is it going to do any big difference? No, not for me. Again, is it going to change the quality of video? No. Is it going to change my eyes or vision or editing or performance? No. It's not going to make any difference. So for me, that's good enough. All right, so Salesforce people will say, oh, the Huawei is really good enough, not better, but good enough, and it's growing fastest and is displacing some iPhones and some Galaxies. Or it could be LG, or it could be any other. In other words, it's the salespeople who know what people are asking for and what they want. I know my cousin sells oils, engine oils, and lubricants for cars mainly. He knows what they want. He knows the type of oils, what they want. They know what they are buying in the winter, what they're buying in the summer, the types and the expensive and the cheap. How many of the customers want the best of the best because they're running an expensive Mercedes, and how many want the cheapest dirt cheap just because they run a 20-year-old car and don't care if the car breaks or doesn't break. So salespeople are actually phenomenally knowledgeable about their products. And number 3, consumer intentions. Exactly the same thing. Consumer So maybe I'll ask the marketing guys, maybe I'll do a little bit of Google research to find out the difference between a survey and a polling. My understanding is the following. Survey is a detail. You ask a lot of questions. You find a lot about who the respondent is, and you find in a great detail. A poll is usually short question with a short answer. Do you plan to buy this? Do you plan to buy that? In other words, a poll is basically in voting, they call it polling. You're going to vote Democrat or Republican. I'm just going to vote for this. Usually, polling takes like 30 seconds. Survey can take 5 or 10 minutes or 1 hour. Okay? So surveys are detailed, polls are short and quick. And last piece. Now, you see how I'm continuing over here. Number 3 is, let me write it because that's an important one. Foreign perspective. Foreigners have the extraordinary advantage of not being wrapped up in the culture. They don't know the culture. They're not wrapped up like me in the advertising, meaning whatever is your advertising, I'm not affected in any way possible, right? Well, we're not wrapped up in religious things. We're not wrapped up in cultural things. For us, it's sometimes easier to see objective reality just the way it is, whether it's on consumption patterns, production patterns, economic patterns, especially when the foreigner is just a visitor. He comes in for a week and he gets to see a whole bunch of things, of course, different from Thailand, different from America, different from whatever. For example, I had a very different perspective. I was just 2 months ago in Finland, and I was in Denmark, Copenhagen, and you get in there instead of saying, oh, every single taxi is a Mercedes, and every single taxi is like new, 2 years old. Or one, okay? There's no 40-year-old taxi, okay? So, and you get to see a whole bunch of other things very quickly, okay? And you get a very different perspective from the locals. Because the locals, they were born there, raised there, suddenly, if there's traffic jams, you get to see and all sorts of other things. So, foreigners have a unique perspective that sometimes is very unbiased. And especially when the foreigners are highly educated, business people. So if you got a foreigner businessman, let's say a foreigner businessman in hotels, or a businessman who travels around the world in a lot of hotels, it's going to be for him 10 times easier and more valuable to stay here in 10 hotels in 10 days and evaluate your hotel business. I didn't say it's good, I didn't say it's bad. All I said is just because he's a foreigner and just because he's traveled all around, he can come here and get a very quick evaluation, vastly superior than interviewing 10 or 100 people who are, in your case, affected by your own advertising. You're affected by what your sister said and what your brother said and what was your mom's experience, okay? Which is very different than a foreigner perspective, okay? So sometimes foreigners can provide extraordinarily unbiased information. Again, for me, as a foreign teacher, I can provide an extraordinary insight into the educational system here, because I've been in 10 other educational systems, meaning in 10 different countries. I've taught in Saudi Arabia, and in Bahrain, and in Taiwan, and in Macau, okay? And of course back home in Bulgaria, and in the US, and in Thailand, and in Cambodia, okay? So I've been in a whole bunch of countries. I've taught it at different levels, including MBAs, and I can provide a unique insight, which you can get 10 or 100 people out of whatever, ministries and committees and interviewers, because sometimes they deal with the paperwork. I deal with the students, okay? And there's a little bit, and I actually read the questions, and I actually can judge how you perform relative to, let's say, students in Bahrain or Cambodia. Again, I didn't say higher, better, lower. I just said I got the perspective as a foreigner. All right, that should be good enough because that completes the chapter. Again, only 6.1 and only 5.2. I think that's good enough for
What was the
today.
question, sir, for this part?
Well, same thing. what are some of the main, describe 3 or 5 main methods for qualitative forecasting? It's the same thing. Or what do the main survey techniques include? So the main survey techniques include consumer expenditure survey, inventory changes, salespeople in planning. These guys know a lot. Again, these are completely different ways of finding out what's going on. Of course, sometimes you just talk to 20 cashiers at different places, and the cashiers know just as much. Is there traffic, no traffic, what's going on, and how it's going on. All right? All right.